what proteins to make, right? Our code, obviously you've heard of my genes, my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That can change. The components that make up DNA, and it's like a message. Think of it as a code. So you can, if the message changes, that's what mutating is.
Oh,
And so the problem with the flu virus is that that the message changes. So the DNA or RNA, the particles that the flu carries, that code can change. The message can change. Because when you're making a vaccine, there are certain components that you need to know about the infectious particle to make the vaccine, so that when the body sees a part of it, it can mount an immune response.
gotcha.
So, but if it keeps changing, then you have to keep changing the vaccine.
The vaccine.
Yeah. So as far as I know, COVID hasn't done that, thank goodness. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, you want us to move a little bit?
Yeah, just looking for the.
Yeah, so we'll just have to pray that God blesses us with the knowledge and this thing doesn't change much,
Coverage.
Yeah.
and the
Wow.
vaccine
Show
works.
you.
Oh, we're on. We're on.
Ron, perfect.
What did
All
you
right.
make?
So,
Okay.
welcome everyone to our talk today on the COVID-19 vaccine. We
Yes.
chose this topic to talk about today on The Doctor Is In because it's very anxiety provoking for a lot of us. And it's anxiety provoking. It's it's a very hard. It's controversial. It's a big topic to talk about. So we're not claiming to have all of the answers, even though we're medical professionals. But we'll just provide you with what we do know.
Right.
Okay. So we can start with a little history lesson on vaccines. So vaccines have been around for a very long time. They started way back, as you can see, in 1796, and then all the way to, so we had the smallpox, which was the biggest killer of everyone, and it was eradicated. And then they then around the 1920s they developed a vaccine for tuberculosis, diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough. And then in 1944, they got the first vaccine against the flu. And then the 50s and 60s, they had the DTaP, the Tdap. That's the one you take when you get stuck by a rusty nail or something and you go to the ER, then they'll give you a tetanus shot so that you don't. And you only need that every 10 years. And then we had hepatitis B, which was the latest one to be invented in 1986. And then now we have COVID that we need a vaccine for. So here we are again. If you guys could look at this screen, there's been a lot of vaccines um, that have come about. And you can see most of these things are eradicated, but we still have people getting, we still have Ebola, we have the A flu, we still have chicken pox in with some people, we still have meningitis. So when you're over 65, then you take that vaccine. We have hepatitis E, which is not talked about very often, but it can be harmful to your liver. We have HPV, which causes cervical cancer in our girls, and then in our boys, it can cause cancer as well. And then we have rubella, which we rarely see. We have diphtheria, which is bad with diarrhea. And then polio, which is mostly eradicated, but there's still some cases around, especially in endemic places like Africa. So, and then the measles, TB, which we barely see, and then whooping cough, which if you guys remember, 2 years ago, whooping cough was awakened. Some travelers came and they brought it here. So anyone who didn't get the vaccine or whose immunity expired got the whooping cough. So we lost a few people to the whooping cough not too long ago. So, and then the mumps, I don't know if you guys remember the mumps from the islands. You can get it in your neck, you can get it in your testicles, you can get it in different places. So
So the big point is what?
you tell them the big point.
There's an elephant in the room and we need to address it. We're going to address it now.
We're gonna address it.
So
That's
who
right.
has a question about, so the point is vaccines, if they're given properly, and the reason I say that because I know someone's going to mention the Tuskegee Airmen, and with that, I don't want to get too much into it, but clearly, some of our brothers were infected with syphilis, but not treated. They were doing experiments. They wanted to see what was going to work, what wasn't going to work. That's what that was. Had they gotten proper treatment or the vaccine, of course, if there was a vaccine, that wouldn't be happening. So that was the whole thing with the Tuskegee Airmen experiment. They gave them syphilis, and some of them were not treated. That's what happened.
Right. It's not that they gave them the wrong vaccine.
Yeah, we're talking about preventing disease, and as you can see throughout the history of man, men and women, you have all these diseases which could have eradicated a large portion of the population. So when done properly, we've got a long history of vaccines being successful. And the reason why you might see some outbreaks of measles, et cetera, because some folks are anti-vaccine, which is fine, that's their right. The problem is when you have a public health crisis like we do now, every time someone doesn't get the vaccine, they pose a risk to themselves, not only themselves, but to others.
Yeah.
And
Like
so
others with weakened immune systems.
yes. So the point is, we have evidence that that vaccines have helped us throughout history, and so now we're faced with this pandemic, and the question is COVID-19 vaccine safe? And I know that's what people are asking.
So we are gonna get to all of that, but yes, Kim, go ahead with your question.
No, I'm just going back real quick to the Tuskegee experiment,
Sure.
because I heard Mika say they didn't get the wrong vaccine. That's what threw me off.
Yeah.
So
It-
they
It
were
didn't, they
given
gave them,
Some people. So the problem is, they first of all they did experiments without consent on them,
okay. Yes, I know.
and they would inject some of them. Probably got saline, and not antibiotics. And then they followed the disease progression in the people who were not given antibiotics. And so that's how we found out more about syphilis. We found out about all the different stages of syphilis because some of them were not given antibiotics, and they wanted to see. They were doing experiments just like Nazi Germany when they experimented on the Jews. It's the same thing. That's exactly what happened. So no consent, lying to the Tuskegee Airmen, not treating them so they can actually study the disease progression. Nowadays, we do that in lab rats and mice. If you want to see what happens, clearly you give you infect the mice to learn about the disease process. They decided to do it in our brothers without their consent.
yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah, that's why so many people are afraid. They're so afraid that they're going to be used as an experiment, especially when you're a minority, and that's a legitimate fear.
Yeah.
I get it. We get it. So, how people always ask, how are vaccines made? What are they using to make the vaccine? Because a lot of people think you're getting a big dose of the virus, and then that's why you get sick when you get it. So there are different ways that they're made. So some vaccines that are made, they weaken the virus, and then they take a little piece out of it and they make the vaccine. They can inactivate the virus and then use some of the inactive, the toxoids, and make a vaccine. Some vaccines actually use part of the virus to make a vaccine. Some vaccines use part of the bacteria, some use some of the DNA, and then for what we are talking about right now, for COVID, they actually use the messenger RNA to make the vaccine. And Dr. Martin will talk about that more. Any questions about that? Can we see everybody's hands?
Any questions from anyone?
Feel free to speak up if you have a question, okay? We're not formal. All right, so let's go to the next one. So why do we need vaccines? So we really need vaccines because they're a safe and effective way to prevent disease. So before vaccines, we had this kind of thing happening. This right here is chicken pox in an adult who never got vaccinated. This is an example of the mumps. I don't know if you all remember this. I remember this from when I was a child.
Actually, I had the mumps when I was little.
You had that right there?
Yep.
Yeah. You
I
did too?
wasn't vaccinated on time. I was living in St. Kitts. I didn't get vaccinated on time, so I had the mumps.
I have mumps.
I
I
have
have chicken pox. I have measles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the and and the thing is, like, none of these are gonna kill you per se. I guess
if you're immunocompromised.
But if you have like another thing that's making your immune system weak, it can kill you. And this is chicken pox over here on the right. So we need it because
Pregnant person?
it protects against disease. And then if you're around someone with cancer or with HIV or with any disease that weakens the immune system, a little thing can kill them. So we do it not just for us, but we do it for the greater good. And then the problem now is that because of COVID, a lot of kids have missed their vaccinations. And a lot of people are happy not to give their kids the vaccination. Well, guess what's going to happen? Because of that, a lot of preventable illnesses are going to come back because we have a lot of anti-vaxxers who didn't vaccinate their kids who are living right now among us. And what will happen is they will get something and they might not be too sick, but then they can make your family members sick, or whoever didn't take the vaccine can get sick. And that's the problem. All right, types of vaccines. You guys,
There's a whole list of them.
there's a whole list of them. So the one we talked about, the one HPV for cervical cancer. You know about hepatitis. Every baby gets that. Diphtheria, which gives you severe diarrhea. Everyone gets that, even though that's pretty much eradicated, except for like in endemic countries, but they need it. We have measles, meningitis, and all of the ones that you see here. All right, what's in a vaccine, Dr. Martin?
Well, it depends, but basically, like you mentioned, you had a slide that showed either it's going to be a message to tell the cell to make a certain protein, so that when the immune system sees it. So the whole point is, your immune system will attack something that is foreign to the body. That's the basic concept. So when the researchers find out what the infecting agent is, and usually they have proteins involved, because that's how the infectious particle gets into your body. It will bind to your cells through proteins. So if you can identify proteins in the virus or the bacteria, or DNA or RNA, you can then take parts of the infectious agent and make a vaccine, so that when the body sees it, they'll say, oh, this shouldn't be here, and I'm going to mount an immune response, and my immune cells are going to get revved up. And that's the basic concept. So that's why, for instance, if you get a flu shot, yes, you might get some flu-like symptoms or some cold symptoms, because your body is mounting an immune response. So that's why you'll hear people say, well, I'm never getting the flu shot again, because when I got it 2 years ago or last year, I got sick. That can happen because depending on how they make the flu vaccine that year, they're either taking, what we call live attenuated vaccine virus, or dead virus, or part of the virus, and they deliver it in the vaccine shot, the flu shot, and your body has to mount an immune response to that. And so, yeah, you might feel a little bit under the weather, but the point is, the flu, as you know, the flu virus can kill you. And so, and although there are challenges with the flu vaccine because the virus changes every year, the fact of the matter is your chances of surviving are much higher with the flu shot on board versus with the flu shot not being on board. So that's the whole concept. And so now there are some other components. Yes, they might be preservatives, and so some people are allergic to those. And there's some other compounds to stabilize the vaccine. Like I know most of you know by now, the COVID-19 vaccine is being shipped today, and you have to keep it, I think it's like below
70,
like
below
negative 70
degrees.
degrees. So FedEx and UPS, obviously they've done this before. So they have refrigerators that they're delivering the vaccine in. So stuff like that. So that's why some vaccines, just like foods, certain foods, they have preservatives, Yes, some people would be allergic to them. Some people may have a reaction, just like some people have a reaction to yellow number 5 or red number 3 or whatever it is. So yeah, so that's why, and the studies that they've done have been on kids that are, folks that are over 16 years old. So there are some other chemicals, other components in the vaccine, but luckily most people tolerate them well.
That's right.
And so the risk of getting sick and dying from the disease is minimized with the vaccine. Okay. So let's talk about there are a lot of vaccine candidates for COVID-19, but I'm going to talk about 3 of them. Okay, so obviously you guys know Pfizer has started shipping their vaccine today. And so other people have been asking me, are you going to get it? And the answer is yes, I'm definitely getting it, because as you guys know, I'm exposed to COVID-19 patients all the time, and I am relatively high risk. Even though my diabetes and blood pressure are controlled, if I get sick, my chances of dying are much higher than not getting the virus. So, or getting the virus. So, I am going to take my chances. The technology is actually not brand new. So, some people have said to me, why don't we wait? We haven't had enough data to find out about the long term effects. Actually, perhaps not with this particular vaccine, but this technology has been around since 1990. And basically, what they started looking at back in 1990, that was like the first study published. They figured out how to take a virus. They got the RNA message from the virus, the code, and they started delivering the virus to mice. And that RNA will tell the mice's DNA to make certain proteins. So for COVID-19, they looked at a certain protein, and this protein on the outside is called a spike protein. This is how the virus gets into your cells. So you inhale the virus, it looks like this. It gets into the respiratory mucosa, and it starts binding to a cell by these proteins. So what they did was they took the messaging just for this protein. So the RNA message. So remember, RNA is think of RNA as it's called genetic material. So we have DNA, but when our bodies need to make proteins, enzymes, etc., we actually make a copy of the DNA, and it's called RNA, messenger RNA. And there's different types of RNA, but the main point is these are codes, messages to tell the body to make something. That's what DNA and RNA are. So they took the code or the message on how to make this protein, and they put it into a fatty bubble, basically. The fatty bubble stabilizes the vaccine. That's what the vaccine is. It's a fatty bubble with the message inside of it to tell our bodies, hey, make this protein, this one, so that when the immune system sees it, it's going to develop antibodies. And so if I get exposed now to the entire virus, I have a much bigger chance of not getting sick and or surviving. So same concept. So this is not brand new. I know people are saying it's new. The vaccine just came out. What about long-term studies? This technology has been around since 1990. The reason why they didn't develop a vaccine yet was, number one, there were too many side effects in the lab, so they had to work out those kinks. Number two, they couldn't figure out how to give the vaccine without the material breaking down. RNA is very unstable in most cases. And so if I just injected RNA from the vaccine into my bloodstream or into my muscle, my body actually will break it down. So I've got to envelop the RNA message into a fatty bubble, which is what they did in this case. So now we can mount an immune response. They've minimized side effects. That's why it took so long. And it's safe. So this is not new technology. It's actually been around since 1990. So hopefully that will allay some of your fears. Okay, and this is an example of how the vaccine looks. Basically, it's a little bit. So as you can see the difference? This is the entire genetic code of the virus, the COVID-19 virus. They only wanted to take this part, because that's the part that tells the body make the spike protein, which is this part. Hence, this is how the vaccine looks. And so when that goes into our body, all we're going to see is this. The immune system will mount an immune response and make antibodies to this part of the virus. So then if we get exposed to the virus, for real now, we have the antibodies, and we should either stop the infection or minimize the risks of the infection. Okay, and then honey, you have this fence. So once again, this is how it's going to work. These are the vaccine particles with the genetic code in there, the RNA code. That's the message to tell the body, make this spike protein. This is a spike protein. It's going to then go to the cell surface. This is the cell surface. These are the spike proteins. And look what's happening. You've got the antibodies coming to form, so that when you do get the real virus, your body can fight it. Because we can't we can't fight, some of us can't fight this thing. Now, I recognize some people are not getting sick, and some people are getting sick but recovering, and some people are dying. So it depends on, remember, coronaviruses have been around for a long time. And so they're in that group because they're very similar. They're similar in many ways, the genetic material, the proteins on the surface. So that's why some people are not getting sick, because perhaps they got exposed to other coronaviruses and their antibodies are going to work against COVID-19. But we don't know who that is.
Yeah, because
I have no idea. I've been sick. I've gotten many colds from working in the hospital, but I don't know if I'm going to mount the proper immune response. Or on the other hand, some people's immune response is out of control. There's a major inflammatory process happening when they get exposed to the COVID-19 virus. That's another reason why the technology took so long, because when they were giving animals the vaccine, some of the animals were actually mounting an immune response too strong, similar to what we're seeing now in some patients. So this technology is not new. And I actually have the references. I believe you put the references on there on the last slide. So anyway, so that's really what we're looking at, folks, with the COVID-19 virus. And I know you're going to have questions.
So we're just gonna go through the pros and cons, and then we're gonna open the floor for all the questions. So here are the pros. The vaccines can and have saved children's lives. The ingredients are used in safe amounts, and then all these major medical organizations have said that they are good, even though some of them are in bed with the pharmaceutical companies, so we can't trust them 100%. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. Adverse reactions to vaccines do happen, but they're extremely rare. Vaccines protect the herd. If you guys have heard of herd immunity, then this is what occurs when you take a vaccine. Everyone starts having immunity, and then it's hard for the virus to penetrate the herd. Vaccine, there's lots of data about vaccines saving children and their parents' time and money. Because imagine you have your child with COVID or with chicken pox, or you have to take days off from work. Some childhood illnesses make you have to take a lot of time off because your child is so violently ill, and so then that's lost in industry, lost in time, lost in revenue. Vaccines protect future generations. You can pass on your immunity, or they eventually disappear with time. The diseases disappear with time. Like I was saying, some of them we have seen not many cases of diphtheria in the U.S. Maybe 32, I think, in the last 20 years. Vaccines eradicated smallpox and have nearly eradicated other diseases such as polio. Vaccine preventable diseases have not disappeared, so vaccination is still necessary. I was reading that you're just a plane ride away from polio. You could sit next to the wrong person on a plane, and the next thing you know, your immunity was low for either polio or whatever it was. You didn't build up in enough of an immune response. Next thing you know, you've got that disease because you got people from other countries. One airplane ride away. That's all you are from any kind of illness. And also,
you're not going to be able to see that one, so I have to move it back.
Okay. All right, go back.
Doesn't want to go back. Let's
Go
try
back this way.
1, 2. Here we go.
Yeah, so that's okay. I don't need to see it. Oh, okay. So can you guys see that? Vaccines can cause serious and sometimes fatal side effects. And I know that's scary, but that's also very rare.
It's very rare.
Very rare.
It is a risk, but it's very rare.
That's right. Sheila, can you tell us what happened? Sheila is a registered nurse, and she's going to tell us what happened with the COVID vaccine.
So as you heard in the past week, these vaccines have been going out to different countries, and the UK started administering them first. So we did have, with all the people that got the vaccine, we only had 2, and I don't remember the amount of people that had the vaccine, but it was a large group, and only 2 had adverse reactions. And that was because they were known to have allergic reactions. So they went into anaphylaxis, but they had their EpiPens because they're allergic, they're allergic to many things. So they're not sure what ingredients they reacted to in that vaccine. So um, I know on Saturday, the CDC asked everyone who was getting the vaccine to like halt if you have issues with allergies or anything like that. But today they came out again and said, you know what, we still advise that you get the vaccine because the benefits outweigh the risk. And the only thing that they ask is that you stay and you be monitored 30 minutes after, which is pretty standard. And the two people who had the allergic reactions, all they needed was their EpiPen, and they were, they were pretty much better.
Yes,
Yes.
that is what I heard as well. So if you're pretty healthy, now there are some people who will not, but we'll talk about who can get the vaccine.
Yeah. And even with your pregnant folks, I know they didn't do any studies on those who were pregnant, but from the trial, a few people did get pregnant while they were on the vaccine, and everything seems fine. And the doctors are saying they don't see anything in the ingredients that would cause a problem with carrying a child for the mother or the child or the fetus.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Let's finish the cons, honey.
Let's go back. Did you find the info?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other problem with vaccines that most people who don't want to be vaccinated have is that people do not want the government intervening in their personal medical choices. So just like, you don't want them telling you what to do with your body as a woman, the same way you shouldn't have to be told that you have to get a foreign substance in your body because good or bad, vaccines are foreign. So, and many times there's a lot of evidence that you will build immunity even without getting a vaccine. That's what we know. That's why the term herd immunity, that sometimes, everyone gets it and then you naturally build antibodies. And then a lot of religious people will say that mandatory vaccines infringe upon their constitutional protected religious freedoms. And I get that too. But usually when you take a vaccine, it's for you and it's for the greater good. And then some people can complain about the ingredients that are in vaccines. And they've used over the years a lot of controversial things in vaccines in the past. Like in 1960, they used like aborted fetus cells to come up with the vaccine for, I want to say Tdap. And then people like just freaked out. And they were like, no, no, no. The Catholic Church went crazy. They said, no, we can't do that. But some vaccines they use the egg protein. That's what's in the flu. Some vaccines use pigs. Some vaccines use gelatin. Some things that Adventist people and some other religious people really object to, and that's one of the reasons that you can say no. But situation, whether it be a surgery, whether it be a vaccine, a medical procedure, you have to decide for yourself. No one can tell you. Do the benefits outweigh the risks? So you're standing there like the little man at the bottom. Here are the pros, here are the cons. What do I do? What do I do? You may have to seek the Lord in prayer. I don't know. But you're just going to have to make a decision for yourself, and no one can force you. But just know that if you don't take it, your chances of getting COVID are high because COVID is highly infectious and it's floating around in the air. I have a study that I read and I sent to a lot of my friends just Tuesday about in China. They did, in South Korea, they're very advanced with their COVID tracking. They have trackers on everyone. If you've had COVID, they know where you are, they know where you're walking to, they know where you're going, and you're using everything, you have to pay everything by card. So in a restaurant, there was a woman who went to the restaurant to pick up some food. Inside the restaurant, there were people 20 feet away from her. And this woman, who was 20 feet away, was able to give her COVID germs to people who were 20 at a table 20 feet away. And the reason that this occurred was because they found that the ventilation system, the air conditioning, was able to take her COVID germ from her mouth and send it, which she thought she was safe because she was way outside there. and bring it 20 feet from the air system in the restaurant, bring it 20 feet to people. So 3 people in that restaurant got sick from that one contact. And then they went on to make their families sick and so on and so on. It's like a domino effect. So eating in restaurants isn't safe. Walking around outside without your mask isn't safe. You don't know if the person in front of you has COVID and is talking on their phones quietly, minding their own business, and their COVID germs by the wind is being blown backwards into your face. So even if you go for a walk in your neighborhood, it's safe to.
Right. And how about if you don't know who was there before? Yeah, it's empty now, no one's here, but you don't know who was there before and it's still lingering in the air. So that's why it's safe. Even when you don't see people, you don't know if somebody with COVID was just hacking away in the space that that you are now in and they're gone. So I always,
Yeah,
like you, I promote it because you never know.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna stop sharing our screen. Oh no, before we do, let's just show you guys our information. If you have questions and you are shy and you don't want to ask them, you can email us, and then of course most of you have our phone numbers and we can talk as well. How do we stop sharing?
Well, you have to let them write down the info and then you can start.
Yeah, so this is our emails. You can copy it and email us at any time.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
I have three questions and quick. This first question I want to ask may sound funny, but I'm really really serious.
Hmm.
I've watched since the pandemic started at the beginning of this year. I have watched the president treat this as if it's so nonchalant. I have watched when it really got serious. I've watched the president, make speeches somewhat and totally ignore like the experts to
Hmm.
where I've understood Dr. Fauci was trying to say, and there were others that were trying to give advice for the president to let the experts speak. So that leaves in my mind now that all of a sudden, now that he's leaving or what have you, he's somewhat taking this serious and addressing it, is what I see. So that leaves me a little leery. So my question with that is, does he have anything to do with it? As far as telling experts what to put in it. I mean, we've heard that, he talked about bleach and all of this other stuff is okay. And people followed that. So now I'm saying, now that we've come up with a vaccine, what part does he have to play, Penny, the president, in the manufacturing of this vaccine?
Well, I don't have any information in regards to that. I do know that they offered to sell more doses, and they said the administration said no. This was a few months ago. But in terms of his influence on the production, manufacturing, I don't know. I don't have any info on that.
The only thing that he really has, the only part that he really does play in it is that it's it's something new that we have a vaccine that's been produced so quickly, that they've come up with so quickly. So he does get props for coining Operation Warp Speed, right? So they give that to him. That's what he promotes. Like, it's because of me, that you guys have this vaccine so quickly because I'm putting the pressure on these pharmaceutical companies. So I think that's where he would get the credit for Operation Warp Speed. But I don't think he doesn't have a hand in the science of,
He doesn't need
making it.
science to have anything to say about it, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
And Kim
So, and my other
talk about.
question is, vitamin C and vitamin D. Do you think if we have a strong dosage of that daily, that would help from contacting? That helps with the what you call it? I don't know the medical term. That helps with the,
Contracting the coronavirus? Oh,
yes.
I mean, I think early on they were looking at that when COVID first started. I mean, certainly you want to have your vitamin D levels checked, especially now in the fall, winter, because when they're low, when the levels are low, your immune system is not as robust. But how much it's contributing to fighting the virus, it's unclear. Those studies are still out. They're still being looked at. But having said that, when it first started, yes, they were checking levels and trying to give people supplementation, just because we know it helps your immune system. But does it really help you with COVID-19? I can't say yes. I can't say no. We don't have enough data yet.
No.
But just don't take any unsafe doses. Like, don't go over the recommended dose,
Right.
because
Okay.
that can be harmful as well.
So if you haven't had it done, if you have a lot of melanin like I do, reach out to your primary care doctor so you can get your lab test done, so you can know what your levels are. Because I know when my levels were low when I was a resident, I was getting sick a lot, and then finally I got it checked, and all year long, knock on wood, since I've been wearing the mask and everything, I haven't even had a cold. Usually I get a cold every season. I haven't had anything. Between the hand washing and the mask and the social distancing and
Praise the Lord.
all that stuff. And the vitamin D, I just checked my vitamin D level the other day. So it's fine. And then yet another question?
Yeah, and the last question I have, you said it earlier, but I've often heard, and maybe one doctor said it to me years ago, if I'm remembering correctly. For example, the chicken pox. If you get the chicken pox, if you've had it, there's no need to get the vaccine for it, because once you get it, you can't get it again.
You have antibodies to it.
You
What
do.
about zoster?
You do
Yeah.
have antibodies to it,
Yeah.
but you can get herpes zoster, because I've had herpes zoster, which is shingles. I don't know if you've heard of shingles.
Yeah.
But once you've had chicken pox, you can then get shingles. So I had chicken pox when I was little. I don't remember whether I had it or not. I think I did. But then I came down with shingles, which was in my back. I had a rash on my back, and then it was determined to be shingles.
So the virus tends to kind of, even though you get over the infection, let's say you have chicken pox, you get over the infection, the virus actually tends to live in some nerve tissue, but in a much smaller area of the body. So that's what shingles is. It'll be what we call a dermatome, a smaller section of the body. However, people with immunocompromised immune systems like HIV, you'll see a really nasty shingles rash. But for most people, it's a smaller area, but it can be painful. So you can get the other part of the disease, if you will, called shingles, and there's a different vaccine for that.
Yep.
So Mika, like yourself, and I've never gotten a chicken pox vaccine.
Yeah.
Would
But
you?
so you're older now, so you should get the shingles vaccine, because there is one for
I
older
see.
people.
Yeah. So it's two
So-
different vaccines, one
Yeah.
for chickenpox and then one for shingles, which is
Right.
which is different.
Yes. So they wouldn't give you the chickenpox vaccine now, because it is a childhood disease. But chickenpox in an adult, I showed you guys a picture, right? It's very, very bad.
Any other questions? And I know, oh, by the way, I need to address one more thing. There's somebody on the internet, you showed me this video of this pastor the other day.
Yeah, yeah. And it's going, there's a lot of misinformation going on WhatsApp.
Oh, and then Pastor, to address Pastor's question from this morning, I looked it up on the CDC
Well,
website.
tell them what the pastor said.
So Pastor was saying that there's also another conspiracy theory on the internet where someone's claiming that the people who are dying from COVID-19 compared to last year, they were gonna, basically the death rates are the same this year and last year. And so the people who are dying from COVID-19, they were gonna die anyway. Well, first of all, this is not for the pastor, he was just telling us what he saw. So to the person who's spreading these rumors, first of all, nobody has a crystal ball, so there's no way I could tell how many people were gonna die anyway. So I guess they were claiming, well, if you had lung cancer or whatever it is, pancreatic cancer, you were going to die anyway, and then you got COVID, which sped up the process. I have no idea. Sometimes you give someone a prognosis for lung cancer, and they're alive a year or 2 or 3 later. So,
Well, but give us the numbers, though.
so when I looked up the CDC website, 2.8 million people died
Last year.
And this year, if it's the same rate of death, which it's not, it's higher. So this time last year, it was 1.4 million. Right now, towards the end of June, because the data stopped at the end of June for the CDC, it was 1.6 million up until June. So if it keeps going the same way, we're going to have an additional 400,000 people dead compared to last year. So it will be 2.8 million from last year. If this rate continues, it'll be 3.2 million. So 400,000 over what last year is. So it's not true, at least based on the CDC. I'm not sure why they would make these numbers up. But the additional deaths are probably from COVID. Are there some people who had end-stage cancer that got COVID-19 and died? Sure. But the fact of the matter is you have more healthy people dying because of COVID. So even if I took away all the terminal cancer patients and just say, okay, how many healthy people are dying? The numbers are much higher. So that's one. So we got to dispel that stuff. And then the other one is there was a pastor, I don't know what church he's from, but he was basically talking
From
about
Trinidad, wasn't he?
viruses and,
He's a doctor.
and RNA and so forth. Yeah, so like I said, this is not new technology. It's actually been looked at since 1990, and they've been working the kinks out. And so although it seems like we don't have enough information, this technology is actually not new. In fact, they were working on SARS-1 from the SARS-1 outbreak from, I guess, like 10 years ago. They've been working on that vaccine. So some of that knowledge that they gained from that vaccine, they used in this technology. That's why it happens, we got a vaccine so quickly. So instead of waiting 4, 5, 6 years, this technology has been worked on since 1990.
So it's not new.
So it's not new. So anyway.
Any other questions?
Any questions from anyone? Does anyone still feel leery about getting the vaccine? I'm gonna get the vaccine. I already told you guys that. Because I don't want to take my chances getting COVID. I have no idea if I'm gonna survive COVID or not, and I'll take my chance with the vaccine. It seems to be safe. The technology is not brand new. I recognize that people are concerned, but COVID-19 is deadly. Make no mistake.
Is it in Connecticut yet?
I think they're saying by tomorrow some hospitals should have it.
It shipped a few minutes ago.
Yeah, because I think at my hospital, I think they're gonna have some doses towards the end of the week. But some cities around us will start having it as of tomorrow or Tuesday.
I know I asked a lot of questions. I have a question. How do we know when they come, they're not shooting us with a placebo?
Oh God. I guess, Kim, we don't know.
We really
we're
don't.
We're gonna pray that there is no what's the word I'm looking for?
Funny business.
Malfeasance.
Funny business. Funny business. Here's how I look at it, right?
You just gotta trust the Lord.
Even you gotta trust the Lord, exactly, that people are gonna do the right thing. And even if people are driven by greed, well, if I'm greedy, if all I'm thinking about is money, why would I then sell a vaccine that doesn't work? And then people are dying anyway. So if the only thing I'm thinking about is making money, wouldn't I want the vaccine to actually work so I could keep making it and making more money? But if people are dying from the vaccine, after getting the vaccine, still getting COVID, then I'm not going to make the money anyway that I thought I was going to make. So even if that's what you think is the impetus for people making this stuff, it still doesn't fly with my brain at least.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, can it happen? Can you have, other groups with counterfeit vaccine, if you will, or fake vaccine? Just like with medications, like, you'll get fake pills. It's supposed to be pills for your blood pressure, but it's a sugar pill. And that's not coming from the legitimate sources. It's coming from illegitimate sources. And so that could be a possibility, but again, vaccines, this is going to be well regulated. Everything's coded. You're going to get it from Pfizer. It's going to have a certain packaging and labeling to prevent this from happening. So I can't imagine them giving us just saline for the vaccine, but anything is possible. So I'm just going to trust that they're actually giving us a vaccine.
Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay, Hennies, I have a question.
Okay.
Say, for instance, someone get the COVID and they go to the hospital. They have COVID. Will they give them the vaccination that time?
No.
They won't get it? You have to get it before?
You have to get it before. In fact, if you've had COVID, if you've had COVID recently, I think it's in the past 3 months, if I remember correctly, it might be 6 months. If you've had COVID recently, in the past 3 months at least, you're not getting and obviously you survived it, you have antibodies. So you don't need to get the vaccine.
Okay.
No. So does
So
but
if I go to the hospital and I'm dying, they won't give me the vaccine.
no, because at that point, I don't. It's not going to because you already have it.
But I have
Okay.
that some people who have had COVID will get the vaccine because they think that some people get reinfected.
Right. But as
So,
far as I know, the messaging that I saw in the past 3 months, you won't get it. If you survive it, you won't get it. So I haven't heard anybody getting the vaccine if they're sick. I can certainly look into it, but usually not. Yeah, usually not.
what were you gonna say, Sheila?
Because remember,
Oh,
hold on,
mhm. Go
remember,
ahead.
it takes a few weeks because that's what you need 2 doses. You need 2 doses of the vaccine for it to get to the efficacy, the effectiveness that you need.
Yeah.
So, other
So
questions?
I know this is, you guys were like going through the pros and the cons. I know one of the on WhatsApp they have all of these conspiracy theories, and one of the things I remember one Adventist person was saying was, "Oh, but it has nanotechnology. This is the mark of the beast. They're gonna have these little tiny micro robots in there controlling us," and I'm like,
It's going to
"That's
take over our
interesting."
DNA. They said that it's going to take over our DNA and
Right. Yeah.
DNA, and then
And
the
it's not funny because we do have nanotechnology.
Yeah.
So just to, put everyone at ease, we will just bring this to the floor.
So the technology they're referring to is that fatty bubble. That's where the nanoparticle comes in. I don't know anything about a computer. There's no, as far as I know, and again, I'm not in the lab making the vaccine, but as far as I know, yes, it's nanotechnology, but it's not a microchip that they're putting into you, as far as I know. They can't make a chip that small. First of all, these particles are microscopic, so there's no way they can make a chip that's so tiny that it's microscopic. We can't see it with the naked eye. We're not there yet. Um, so they're talking about the fatty bubble that the viral messages or the RNA messages in. That keeps it stable so that when they vaccinate us, it will get to where it needs to get to. So I don't know anything about a chip or whatever. I mean, here's the thing. Who was telling us the other day? Oh, my son, my son's barber, who shall remain nameless, is concerned about this theory. And I said to my wife, who wants to follow him? Who's tracking me? The CIA is interested in me? Do they have nothing else to do? I'm not that interested. I go to work, I come back home. I go to work, I come back home. what secrets do I have that the CIA needs to track me? Now, if I was a world-class hacker, somebody who could hack into the CIA's website, that's a different story. You need to track that person because what if they get the nuclear launch codes? So what I'm saying is people come up with these weird theories like use your common sense. What does the CIA or FBI want with Mika and me? We're not that interested. I mean, my goodness. But if we have a special talent, like I said, hacking, or I'm a nuclear physicist, something like that, where my action can affect the whole world, then yeah, you might want to keep an eye on some of those people because sometimes they get with clandestine folks and with devious folks and do bad things.
but it won't be via vaccine.
Yeah.
There was a question in the chat. The question was, how will the vaccine be distributed?
Well, I think that as far as I know, through CVS,
Mm-hmm.
and they already made arrangements to send them to hospitals. But in terms of all the intricate details, I don't know. And they're going to start with healthcare workers first,
Mm-hmm.
elderly folks in the nursing homes, and I don't know what else, how they're going to do it
People
after
who
that.
are immunocompromised.
People who are immunocompromised. But yeah, CVS and the hospitals already have a plan. The governments of each state have a plan with CVS to distribute to the different hospitals and nursing homes. I think they're actually going to send people to nursing homes to administer the vaccine to elderly folks who are in the nursing homes.
And the first responders too.
Yeah, and first
First
responders.
responders.
And then in the hospital, of course, the medical professionals will get the vaccine. So that's all been arranged.
So I think you wanted to know, Danielle, are you going to be able to get the vaccine as a layperson?
Eventually, I just don't know what the timeline is because they got to get all the high risk people, first. and then they're going to keep, they said they're going to make 4 million doses a month, give or take. That's Pfizer. So it's going to take a few months before we get to you because of our population size. So probably, hopefully 4 to 5 months. So you still got to, and by the way, when we're vaccinated, we still got to follow the same
Protocol.
measures
Yeah.
until everybody is vaccinated, or they want herd immunity, which is about 75% or 70% of people who are protected vaccinated. So even when I get the vaccine, I'm still going to wear my mask. I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to, because I might survive with the vaccine on board, but if I get sick, I can give it to somebody else who's not protected. So this thing is, we're going to be doing this for a long time, but at least there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, that's a bright light.
I'd just like to make a comment. This is very good, this information that we're getting right now from the Doctors Martens. The only thing, well, scratch that phrase, the only thing. It's just, while we're talking about it, and we're literally talking about how to stay alive,
Yes, yes.
to think of the thousands that did not have a chance to maybe get this vaccine that are going.
And that's why, Kim, I hate to oversimplify it, but I really don't want to hear anything from anyone about conspiracy theories about how many people died. Not the pastor, of course, he was just sharing information.
Mm-hmm.
The who died last year, and the nanotechnology and the chip. What you said, you hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
People are dying.
I think it's easy to have all these theories when you're not seeing it, when you're not witnessing it and seeing what it's doing, like live. It's so easy to sit at home, everybody in your house is safe, and say, oh, all these conspiracy theories. But when you're working in a hospital and every day you have you have nowhere to put bodies,
Right.
that changes the whole ball game.
Yes.
What more evidence do people need? This is ridiculous. I don't even know why we're doing it because we want to share information, because I know you guys are reasonable folks, but you've got people out there who are still going to say, well, they're going to track us. Again, are you really that interested that the CIA needs to track you? Probably not. So,
and you know what? If you are that interesting that they need to track you, count it all dung for the cause of Christ. If you are that interesting and somebody wants to take your life for the cause of Christ, it's okay.
right.
Paul was ministering until the day he died. This is what our purpose is, not to be here and to stay alive as long as possible. It's to be here and to do the work as long as possible.
Amen.
Now, it's going to cost some of us. We have to count the cost. We're trying to preserve self. God says, if you're trying to preserve your life, you're going to lose it. But if you give your life to me and you hide your life in me, you're going to get it back again. It's, so I find that we're fighting for the wrong things, and we need to fight to stay in the Lord and to stay in the word. And whatever happens, happens. But yeah, when Christians go that route, it's a little frustrating, because I'm like, no, guys, come on. So
Good point. Well said, Sheila.
So any other questions or concerns about the vaccine? I know people still have, questions, but once again, as Elder Kim said, we're talking about life or death. This is not a joke. I don't know what else to say. In fact, one of Mika's friends in town said to her, I don't even know if this thing is real. And then 2 days later, our neighbor got sick, and he didn't even last a week.
Mm-hmm.
Right next door to me.
Because she's telling Mika, I don't know anybody who got COVID-19.
So I don't know if it's real or not. Like, I'm not trusting it. So those of you who are watching Fox News are probably feeling that way.
Did you have to mention Fox News?
I didn't. But I'm just saying, the message is different based on what outlet you're watching, right? But so use your common sense and know that there are those who are working against the truth. Don't forget that there's 50% of the country who does not believe that COVID is real.
Yep.
50% of the country feels as though this was a flu that came from China and that was intentionally inflicted upon us. Well, guess what? I don't care if it's intentional or not. I don't know that. But if it is, we're dying.
Yeah.
So we have to do our best. We have to do our parts. If it's here, I'm going to wear my mask. If that's the only thing that I can do of all things to keep myself from dying, then I'm going to do that. Because I did see my next door neighbor 2 weeks ago, and then within 7 days he died right after being diagnosed.
Right around Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving night, he went to the hospital. By the Wednesday of next week, this 58-year-old man was dead. Now, I don't know if he had pre-existing conditions, but the thing is, he was walking around and he was talking to me before COVID.
Yep.
And then as soon as he got COVID, he died. So it's real, people. I know a lot of you don't know people with it. You can't smell it. You can't see it. You don't know anyone with it, but it's real. It's here. And if it happens to you,